Hey Bonjour and Dinowe Maganitok. Hello my relatives, Wap Canoe Indigo. My name is Wap Canoe. So today I want to talk about business types, the different types of business entities you can have. So you guys all have a business idea, but what is the actual legal structure that business is going to take? So we're going to consider four options. One, you can have a sole proprietorship. Fancy. Second, you can have a partnership or limited partnership. Third, you can have a corporation. And finally, you could do a co-op. So here's the differences between these approaches. One, a sole proprietorship is essentially just you carrying on business under a different name. So me, for example, in real life, I'm Wap Canoe. But if I wanted to start up a sole proprietorship, I could start up a business called Wap Canoe Enterprises. Then I could go down to the bank and open up a new bank account under that name and carry on business under that name, even signing contracts under that Wap Canoe Enterprises name. Now, in this approach, it would still all be on me. If I create some debt under this company, I would still be responsible for paying it back. If I do my taxes at the end of the year as this sole proprietorship, it's still on my tax return. So I'm responsible for paying any of the taxes into and out of that. Pretty straightforward. Limited partnership or a partnership is generally where you go into business with other people and you just have an agreement that specifies how much does each person own, right? At the end of the day, you're still liable for everything that goes on under this company. It's just the percentage that you're liable for will be determined by that agreement that you have, okay? Finally, the corporation is interesting because the corporation is like a totally new being. It's like a separate legal entity from yourself. So I'm Wap Canoe. If I went and started a corporation called Canoe Enterprises Inc., that would be a new legal entity, almost like a new person, different from myself. So I would do my tax return. There would be a separate tax return for Canoe Inc. I would have my own liabilities and credit score. The corporation, those liabilities would be within the shareholders of that corporation, and the credit score would be determined by how that corporation operated. Most big companies, and in fact most companies are in fact corporations. Finally, a co-op, cooperative enterprise. Basically it operates under the one person, one vote. It's a bunch of people getting together who have the same common objective. So we've used the example of Nietzsche Foods in class before. Well, this is a group of people. They got together, started up a cooperative, and they chart the course of their organization by democratic process. Each person votes. So that's a quick look at the four different types of business structures. Probably the two that you're going to be deciding between are sole proprietorship and corporation. So a few things to think about, mostly having to do with liability and taxes. So first of all, liability means if something goes wrong or you assume some sort of debt in your company, who owes it? Well, under sole proprietorship, you do. You're on the hook. Corporation, if you set up a corporation, the corporation is liable. Now, if you are the owner of 100% of the stocks or the shares of this corporation, then you are also on the hook. But if you set up a business and you sell shares to other people, then you are only on the hook for that percentage of shares. Now, the other big one to think about is taxes. So, like I said here, at the end of the day, this is the same as you. As far as taxes are concerned, you will have to pay this. But the corporation is its own legal entity. So here's the interesting thing about taxes. Any money you make in a given year under a sole proprietorship, you have to pay the taxes on. So you have to pay the taxes on the money that you earn in that year. But because it's a corporation and it's its own legal entity, you only have to pay taxes on the money that you take out of the corporation that year. So let's say you're in a real cash cow industry and you make $1 million in a year. If it's a sole proprietorship, you have to pay taxes on that. And you'll be in the top tax bracket, so you have to pay about $500,000 a year in taxes. Well, actually, it'll be more like $470,000 in taxes. But if you have a corporation and you make that $1 million a year, you recognize, hey, I'm not going to spend $1 million this year. I'm just going to pay myself a salary of $100,000, of which you'll pay, say, 45%, or $45,000. The rest of that money, the rest of that $1 million, $900,000, would sit inside the corporation's bank account. So you can see that if you're looking at a potentially lucrative business, it makes sense to incorporate because there's more flexibility around taxes and what you can do there. However, there's advantages to this approach as well. One of them being that, for example, if your business is a money loser, well then that would decrease your overall tax rate. So for instance, let's say you have a good full-time job, you earn $80,000 a year. If you set up a business on the side which loses money, let's say it spends $5,000 more per year than it earns, then that would reduce your overall tax burden by $5,000. You'd only have to pay taxes on $75,000. Whoa, so interesting. So give some thought as to which of these different approaches best suits your business. Miigwech Pizzanowiak. Thanks for listening.